a former news reporter, political editor, foreign correspondent, and radio talk show host. So Mark has been a part of Men's Health Week for several years and is passionate about men getting the best chance in life. So a very warm welcome to you, Mark. We look forward to hearing your thoughts about Men's Health Week and what it's all about. Thank you.
There we go. Look, thank you so much for having me along this morning. I feel a slight sort of fraud at this sort of thing, because as Ali said, my background comes from the the dirty, filthy mainstream media and the lies that they spread around the world. So that has been my background, and things have changed, and it's through that I got involved in what we have here called Men's Health Week. For those who aren't aware of it, Men's Health Week is run internationally. It's tied into the North American Father's Day calendar, so it usually occurs about June each year. And I was doing some talk back actually at one stage, and a friend of mine got in touch, and he was involved in the campaign here for Men's Health Week. And what they do is we get hold of various ambassadors, who are usually celebrities of some sort or different people who can get out there and push the message. So for us, Men's Health Week is an awareness campaign. And the whole point of the campaign, our whole ethos, is to try to gently persuade, just as you're trying to do with the politicians, Alan. We try and do with men. Because when we started looking at, and when I was first, they came to us and said, look, these are the facts, health facts around men's health. And remember, one that stood out was that for every $1 that was spent on women's health, there was 6 cents spent on men's health. Now, there's very obvious reasons why there might be a bigger spend on women's health. And it was not something you wanted to say, oh, this is terrible, so let's take some money off the women and to make it more fair. No, we think that the money that goes into women's health is as it should be, but there is neglect in the areas of men's health. So what we do is have a campaign every year. And it's interesting talking about a men's health policy, because that was something we discussed with the Centre for Men's Health, and they published a paper this year on that. Because back in 2008, which was around when Men's Health Week started, there was the health minister at the time, Damien O'Connor, invited various representatives of organisations with an interest in men's health to the Beehive for the summit, and lofty talk was made of money put into sort of, looking at how they could improve this. And the stated aim was to foster for the medium and long term, a focus for the medium and long term to reduce the disparities between men and women's health, or the disparities in men's health. And it was very lofty talk. After that, as we all know, nothing has happened. It was just consigned to the back room. We have always, as an organisation, as Ali said, I was political editor for some years, and you sort of get loath to get in sometimes to dive into the political debate, but I think we are going to have to very shortly for the same reasons that Alan explained. And part of it is because, as I said, we operate almost independently as an awareness campaign, and we don't take any government money. Myself and my co-director, Tim Green, basically run it ourselves at our own expense. In fact, it was being run by these Aussie guys who basically just got a sponsorship, put the ticket, and they churned it out each year. And we actually had to basically extract it from them, and we had to basically buy the rights to the name, because it was a bit of a disservice was being done. So the past few years, we've been trying to sort of build it up, get it more relevant, but its focus unashamedly is one of awareness. So each year we might have a theme, and one year was mental health. Our theme 2 years ago was go and see a doctor. The stats on the number of men who actually just simply don't go to the doctor are appalling. And okay, it may be manageable when you're young and you're fit and you're healthy, even then it does have repercussions. But the older you get, the outcomes are just not good. So what we tend to do is focus on a simple message for each year. This last year has been small steps. So take those first initial small steps to do something. You're not going to get rid of the smoking, at least cut back the smoking and go that way. Same with your food, same with your exercise. Now, neither Tim or I are medical professionals or in any way qualified to dispense advice. We don't do that. We bring in other people to do so. But what we try and focus our campaign on is just getting to men, and a bit like those sort of, the gentle dental clinics that advertise, come along, we're not going to tell you off for never brushing your teeth for the last 30 years. Well, we're a bit like that. We want to, we're not going to bully people into doing things. We just try and cajole them into it, and we find that is the easiest way to try and change habits. And if we can change habits, so it's going to affect issues around diabetes and smoking and all the preventable issues, then I think we're doing some good. We are at a bit of a cornerstone at the moment. It's really interesting listening before to you, Alan, because I think we're going to have to go back to the future, back to when we first started, and try and push this thing for a men's health policy, because there is none. I remember when Ali told me that Mongolia had a men's health policy, and we didn't. It was something of a shock, and Fiona and Ali and I have had that discussion many times. So what we're maybe going to have to look at doing is, again, trying to focus a campaign that's not overtly political, because there's always changes of government, and having been through there as a political editor for many years, you understand the need to do that. But I think, and that's a very good idea of yours, Alan, is we've got to find ourselves a champion or champions, preferably covering both sides of the house in the parliament, to try and push this through. I mean, it's really, we find whenever we do the campaign, and we basically, because I've got extensive media contacts, and same with my co-director, we largely rely on goodwill to get things out, and it's sort of very much sort of publicity driven. But we need to get it more sort of, and also moving into, as I said, we focus on 1 week, and for 1 week, which we sort of own in this country, that is great. But we need to look at broadening debate and moving the policy in terms of, 365 days a year that the issue should be there. And I think there's incredible potential for that. We get really, really good feedback. People like the idea of the campaign. And as I said, because we're not trying to, saying, oh, this is unfair, women get all of this and men don't, that's not our attitude. We believe that everyone should get as much health care as they need. And there needs to be more of a focus, but it's just slipped away. And it's astonishing looking back on some of those archives of 2008, when there's all this talk, and we're going to have these policy investigations, and money from the budget was set aside to do this, and meetings held. And as we see with so many issues in politics, it absolutely just drifts away. And I think that's one of our focuses is going to be for this, for this next year, is to try and engage in some ways politically, but at the same time try and maintain our independence. There's you get a bit of suspicion in this country when as soon as the government puts any money into anything, oh, you're being bought off, or this sort of nonsense, So we've got to overcome certainly some of that. We come back and listening to the issues around the Pacific. Of course, I mean, we're all aware of the factors. I mean, heart disease, diabetes, strokes, all the various things that men don't need to die of. And I remember when we were sort of collating the figures, which was another great thing, statistics, and we're working it out and started looking at the mortality rates in New Zealand. And one thing that people do understand is, and it's a big issue here, has been super and government super, that if you really have probably fact from birth, you put 4 babies in a room, one of them is never going to get its, never going to get its retirement, never. And we thought, gee, that's sort of pretty stark, it was just overblowing it a bit. And then we started looking at, if it was Maori or Pacifica, take someone else out of the equation. It is absolutely disgraceful on that level, and I was pleased to hear that raised this morning, because we think the stats are bad in this country. They are absolutely appalling if you're Maori and Pacifica, and on that alone, I would have thought there would have been justify a campaign for a government to start addressing it, so at least addressing the issue and developing some policy around men's health. So I think we're going to be relying on our friends down there at the Centre for Men's Health to help in getting some of that information across the political desks. It's an election year here next year as well, so it may be useful to get some commonality, certainly, in terms of that. just in terms of, it also means in terms of funding how we do our campaign, we are very, 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 very lean. The Master Builders, an organisation here that guarantees house builds, because suicide and early death amongst the construction industry was identified as one of the biggest problems in that industry. Huge, huge figures. So that's the only sponsorship they do. They put the money in. There's no really, there's no strings attached, and it's absolutely fantastic. But our problem is we don't get anything else. It's a matter of scale, and to improve it, we're also looking at trying to broaden the message out this year. It all gets a bit sort of tawdry when you're sort of trying to, you know, hit people up for money, but that is for a cause that we really, really believe in. Sort of makes it a lot easier. And this year we did a partnership, for instance, with the Automobile Association. Now, okay, there may be some sort of alignment there, but the great thing about the Automobile Association is they have 1.8 million people on their direct mail. And so they are able to sort of utilize their sort of various reach outs to push our message as well. And that's, I suppose, is one of the other areas I find quite positive in this space. Certainly this year, this has been the 4th time I've been actively involved in the campaign. And that is people are getting out of their silos. In the past, each sort of group involved around men's culture was seen as somewhat sort of, you know, pushing its own barrow, never the twain should meet. This year, we had approaches from the Prostate Cancer Foundation, Diabetes New Zealand, the Heart Foundation, I think Stroke New Zealand, all of them wanting to get involved with what we were doing, because they're starting to see this is not just one aspect, you know, men's health is an issue for everyone. And whereas they had their own particular interests, they were happy to get on board and see what they could do to sort of help in terms of our campaign. And I thought that's been a rather radical shift. And so what we would do, we would have like television appearances booked in for our week. And that's the other good thing, having the week, start slotting the stuff in. We would bring people with us, like the chief executive of the Prostate Foundation, because he could then talk about specific issues around prostate and testicular cancer. And also just shows a bit of collegiality in the fact that we all are here in the same boat trying to do the same thing. And I think that certainly is that's a positive, a really, really positive move for us. And I do have to express my thanks to Ellie and Fiona and the whole team down there, because they were a great discovery and extremely useful. And it's a matter of, you know, getting the right people, and especially, like, I was very, very impressed listening to Alan, is, you know, communicators in this field are just a gold dust. You know, people who can sort of articulate in a great way are perfect for us. So expect to hear from us soon, Alan. So that's about where we're at. Look, I'm happy to answer any questions, but, you know, compared to the work, I mean, I'm very proud of the work we do, and I believe in the work we do, but compared to the sort of amazing stuff that all of you guys do, we feel a little bit sort of you know, insignificant, if you like.
Oh, kia ora, Mark. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. However, what I've just as a comment while people are popping their questions into the chat, I think it's so important, and what I've heard from Alan and from yourself and from what we know from the centre, from an academic perspective, is Alan's comment around mapping what is out there, what initiatives are happening in the community for men's health. We need to find out what's happening on the ground in the community, because it's the collective voice that's going to drive this forward, and that collective voice coming from the community as a whole, and from academia, and also from the media, because I think that's the way that we can probably pull this together, and then you know, seeing if we can get a couple of politicians to be champions as well for men's health.
Funnily enough, Ellie, the media are actually, you know, when we, and look, it helps to have a personal relationship with a lot of them and that sort of thing, but even putting that aside, the media do have a bit of an appetite for it, because in many ways it's quite a, as you say, quite a sexy story. I mean, there's all sorts of, gruesome statistics you can pull up and all sorts of different things. But I've found that their attitude has been extremely cooperative. So, and we're all doing this on an ad hoc basis. I think you're right. We need to get some idea what is out there, who's doing what, where are the gaps, how we can, rather than all these strands going in different directions. I think there is a case for that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Hui, have we got any questions? Any questions?
I can see a question in the Q&A function. It's asked by Judith for you, Mark. She asked, how do you check the impact of Men's Health Week, and what have you seen that works and make any differences?
Sorry, my apologies if that was for me. I just knocked my cord out, so I just heard what was my reaction to that. So would you mind repeating?
Yeah. It's in the Q&A function chat. Yeah. Actually, you can see that. I just read for other attendees. So Judith asked, how do you track the impact of Men's Health Week, and what have you seen that works and make any differences?
Well, look, it varies. A lot of it is said. I mean, we do things like in terms of, our website. We run a thing called What's Your Score, which was a sort of gimmicky thing. Is that an 11 question quiz, and ask various things. Then it'll put you into a category. Yeah, you're doing all right. No, you need to start having a look at things. Better go and see a doctor, or So that's just to give people an immediate idea, and we can measure that in terms of what comes through. We did a thing a couple of years ago where a guy down here who hosts a evening current affairs show that I used to host myself, but previous to that, we did like a live digital rectal examination, and within the bounds of good taste, of course. But it was amazing. The impact, just that one piece of talent, I still get it, 3 years after we did it. We had people coming up and telling us, oh, look, this is, that's really great. I got my husband to go and do it, and we couldn't put him off. So a lot of, we essentially haven't had the sort of the money or the funding to try and do any great sort of analysis. But in terms of our, we do a report every year. So on the basis, say, of our campaign, that'll tell the media reach we've had, the various things with all sorts of other markers as well. But what has become apparent, I know this again is on the anecdotal side of it, but it has quite cemented into being, a fixture of the year. We thought COVID was going to kill us off, and we've managed to sort of come through that as well. So I think there is an incredible goodwill. And of course, the other thing is we're not just appealing to men. One of our most important targets is women. And the reason being, I mean, when I first started, we went down to Field Days, the big farming, exhibit down at in the Waikato, and we're handing out these flyers with these little tests on them. What's your score? Test how healthy you are. And as people come past, these sort of burly, taciturn farmers, oh, no thanks. And their wives immediately, the hand went out. I'll take that, thank you very much, and I'll make sure he does it as soon as we get home. That's another reason by Amanda Gillies we had as an ambassador. And people go, why have you got a woman as ambassador? Well, because wives, girlfriends, family, mothers, sisters, they are the influencers. Sorry, I've strayed off your question a bit, but it comes back to, so we're basically out there talking as much to people. And this year, with the elected campaign that we did with the media campaign, I just thought that'd be fantastic. On one side, we're sort of trying to deal with on the social media side, there's still a room for traditional media. And we just had a field day in a week this year with, several editorials, feature articles, all that stuff. So yeah, it's a matter of just, for us, we just get in there for that week and just try and get as much, we have no shame. We will go on anything, talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime, anyhow, sort of to push the message. Calculating that and doing that, I mean, ultimately, what we want to see is we want to see the stats change. That's our ultimate sign that things are happening. So those terrible, terrible stats for men do start to shift. And even things as simple as I said with our campaign the previous year, go and see a doctor. The number of people you'd meet would go, oh, no, I don't have a doctor. Oh, I don't need to go. But they're also not setting up, you know, if you like, the markers for their health that then can be relied on throughout the rest of their lives.
Thanks, Mark. Other questions coming in?
Yeah, there's a comment coming from, it says, I agree with supporting men include partners, wives, sisters, moms, aunties. They're the key influencers and most importantly, children and Marco Polo.
Yeah, it's you know, it's funny because you'd always have this thing, you know, men and you talk to people and marketers and stuff, and our men are difficult to reach and everything like that. Well, you know, partners is an excellent way of getting to them. And it's I remember the thing that Amanda Gillies, when we one of our digital posts we did, where she said men's health is everyone's health, and that's it. You know, we are advocating for men's health, but it's all it's in everyone's interest.
Fantastic. Any other questions or comments for Mark? Just got a couple more minutes.
The big question for me, Ali, is where do I get my morning tea?
Yeah, that would be nice.
The problem of Zoom conferences, eh?
Oh, fantastic. I'll just have a quick look here. Richard Egan, who's from on our steering committee, Mark, for the centre, has said, thanks for your work, Mark. Great to have you leading this work. So, yeah.
Okay, and Alec, I'll just say again, thanks to you guys down there. I mean, your help is really good, and we've had some great full and frank discussions about, you know, how we can make stuff sort of, you know, it's the old Tony Blair, how to sex up the folders, you know. But the thing is, we've just got to get the message through. And as I say, we've got to be honest and we've got to have our integrity. But we've also, from our point of view, and this is the difference, I suppose, from the media people to the academics, is that we're just going to be shameless in terms of, you know, we will do whatever it takes within reason to push the message and get something going.
Fantastic.
I look forward to working with you next year.
Yes, as do we, and we'll so everyone out there who is listening, you know, we need all of us together to make this happen. So please keep in contact with us at the centre so we can start moving this forward. So again, Mark, look, thank you so much, and thank you so much to our speakers this morning, Alan and Ada, who unfortunately couldn't be here. It's so far there's so much information already that we've got to process, so we'll go and have a cup of tea now, if that's what you wish. So we've got a tea break, so we'll be meeting back here at 11 o'clock for our next set of speakers. So thanks again, everyone, and thank you to you, Mark and Alan. It's been great.